All right. So sorry about the issues with going live today, guys. If someone is in the chat, could let me know if you can hear my voice and if the volume is okay. I'm going to try not to scream into this microphone today, and that should work well for all of us. But today was a just an amazing day. Weather didn't hold out all that great. Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that. Or Sean. Sorry, Sean. I appreciate that. So, guess the volume is good. And even though the weather was a little messed up today, I'm gonna try to get out of here and get back in for just 1 second. So hang tight, guys. I'm trying to get about three things squared away here. See if I can get back into this real quick. There we are. Where is that? Pardon me 1 second, folks. I apologize. Trying to get back into my channel here. And you know what? I'll fix it later, I guess. But anyway, so welcome. Hey, legend, how you doing today? Sean is in the house, and we got quite a few. Yeah, so quite a few people have really. I mean, I drove back from Boulder, so as soon as I got done with the game, we kind of hustled out of there. I went down to go talk to Charlie, but he had already at that point headed into the locker room. So we went back. We ate at Dark Horse, had some Rocky Mountain oysters, which is kind of a game time staple for us. Met my daughter there, who's graduating here in about 2 weeks from CU, and I had a quick dinner with her, and then did like a little some work on her Jeep in the parking lot of her apartment, and then hustled back to the house and got this live stream going. So it's a little discombobulated, but I wanted to spend some time just expressing. I didn't even know that Charlie had received his scholarship until we were out of the stadium. So I was so involved with the other lives that were happening in the stadium, trying to get lives out, and the reception in the stadium is not good. So I was struggling with that. Didn't even notice that he had got his scholarship, and I feel terrible about that because I had almost I didn't want to say it in a video or a live stream because I didn't want anyone. I don't know if I had become the Charlie Offerdahl channel or what over the past year and a quarter now. But I didn't want to predict it and have it not happen again. I think I predicted it a couple of times and it didn't happen. But so glad to see his family up there and Coach Prime celebrating that. It was just like this has got to be the most celebrated walk-on scholarship offer in CU history. Now, if anybody knows different, please let me know. I'm going to reach out to a couple of guys I know from the early 80s football teams and see if they know of anybody. But obviously, none have been this documented and over an entire year and a quarter since, actually longer than that. Since Prime came, it's been a year and a half. But even in 2022, people were talking about Charlie because he really kind of blew up in the spring game of 2022 and became kind of the star of that game. And so it's been multiple years coming. Like his dad said, Uncle Neely was talking to him, and I think the first thing out of his dad's mouth was, "It's a long time coming." And I think what they mean by that isn't that, what I took away from that is more just the anticipation. And they knew that Charlie was going to get a scholarship, and they knew he was going to work hard for it, and his hard work and dedication came to fruition. And he still has, this full season to play as a scholarship player. So what a great day. I kind of wanted to go over Charlie just a little bit for those of you who are going to be watching this video later and don't know where this came from. But he has been with the University of Colorado since 2021 or 2022, I'm sorry. And the first year he played as a non-scholarship player, he ended up setting a school walk-on record for rushing yards at 150 yards. Doesn't sound like a lot of yards, obviously. University of Colorado has had a storied running back background all the way from the 70s on. So there's not a lot of walk-on yardage, as it were, at the University of Colorado, like there may be at some other universities. But Charlie ended up with a 4.1 average, 150 yards in 2022. He was the star of the spring game, just really blew it up in the spring game. And then obviously, you guys know, in 2023, and he also suited up for 10 games in 2022. So he had quite a bit of, I should say, quite a bit of, playing time. He was suited up for a lot of 2022, and he played in quite a few games, a little bit here sparingly, but averaged 4.1 yards. Last year, he only played really in like 2 games. He only suited up for 2 games. I think he only played in 1. He only had 2 carries, but he had 11 yards, so a 5.5 yard average. So in any case, for a guy that didn't play hardly at all last year, to be celebrated the way that he is by the University of Colorado, fans of the University of Colorado, fans of Coach Prime, and really college football fans everywhere, his name has gotten out there, is just stupendous. It couldn't have come to a better guy. And like Coach said, what did Coach call him? Coach called him, oh, good grief, I wrote it down and then I didn't bring it in here. But he called him like the quintessential man or something like that. Because he's hardworking, he's hard studying, he's very polite, and nothing really gets him down or phases him. And so, that's a big win, I think, for all of us at the University of Colorado. It's going to be a lot of fun going forward. This long road of Elevate Charlie has now turned into Elevated Charlie, and we can move on from that but still celebrate him. So that was Charlie in a nutshell right there. Long career at the University of Colorado, as it were, but finally has a scholarship. Let's look at some comments that we have here. So Kev says, about time there was another number 44 who used to play for Washington Redskins named Big John Riggins, who is a dog like Charlie. Charlie works hard and very patient and humble. I agree completely. John Riggins was a bruiser of a back. And Charlie, I think I said this last year quite a bit. Charlie kind of runs a little bit like a fullback if you watch him. He's not afraid about contact, and he'll never shy away from it. In fact, I messaged him last night because I didn't know if he was going to be ready for the spring game or not, because he had been out with an injury. And he messaged back that he was still nursing his injury, but he was okay. And then he'll be back in a couple of weeks, be ready for summer training. So, ended up with an abdomen injury in the practice in the scrimmage on Sunday. So again, taking it all, he's putting it all out there, even in practice. But he'll be back. And so great deal for him. Let's see what Out of My Mind says. Yo, long time. I know you're happy about Charlie. I am. I don't know, I don't even know really where this came from, guys. I mean, I think we all like a good underdog story. But when I saw Charlie in the 2022 spring game, and he stuck out to everybody. If you guys haven't seen that, after this or sometime in the future, go and look up 2022 Colorado spring game. It's a very short, kind of compressed video, but it shows you some highlights. And really, Charlie kind of just stole the whole show. And at that point, I was absolutely hooked after that game. And then he played last year, and I thought for sure he was going to get a scholarship. And then the coaching obviously switched. Coach Prime came in. A lot of players, as you guys know, jumped into the portal and left. I kind of internally figured that Charlie wouldn't, because not only was he not a scholarship player, but also he loves the University of Colorado. He's a Colorado kid, came from Littleton, Colorado, which is basically Denver. So this is his local university. And he just fits the bill for a Colorado buff, hardworking, dedicated. He's dedicated to his studies. He's a family guy, real tight with his family. And so I think maybe that's why he gets so much connection from so many people. I mean, we have a lot of walk-ons on this team, but how many of them get celebrated as much as Charlie? I mean, he connects with all of us because of that underdog mentality, that drive. And I think the one thing that really kind of makes him different from almost any other college player at this point, and this is a broad term. Please don't roast me in the comments for this, but it's loyalty. Coach Prime came in, he stayed. Obviously, he's not going to go anywhere, right? We know that. He stuck it out. He made an impression on Coach Prime, and Coach Prime called him out in spring of last year, and then called him out consistently from then all the way through now. And he's not even a scholarship player. And so I'm going to say the number one thing is just loyalty. Loyalty is a hard thing to come by anymore because everybody wants to make the best for themselves. And now in the era of being able to jump in the transfer portal and move around, they have an opportunity to do that. But Charlie knows this is his home. This is where he's going to be. He wants to graduate from the University of Colorado, I'm sure, and which he's really close to doing, and then start his career. He's going to have a really good, strong career as a doctor. And I think that at least that's kind of what I know about him. And man, it's awesome. Awesome. Anyway, any more things about Charlie here? Let's see. Brian jumped in and said, yeah, congrats, CO. Congrats, CO and Alpine. Tony is in here too. Tony says, how many seasons of elbows does Charlie have left? I think he's got 2 seasons after this one. Is what I'm guessing. I can look that up, but I think he's still got 2 seasons left. Sean says, kind of reminds me of that Penn State running back, John Capoletti. Yep, he sure does. I think he reminds us of a lot of really just strong runners that don't talk a lot, Chris, I know you're very proud of Charlie. Take the praise because you called it a long time ago. Yeah, I think I was probably the first channel to call him out, but Charlie is just one of those guys. He wasn't going to stop. And honestly, I get this feeling from Charlie that the scholarship really wasn't. I think it means more to Charlie just from the recognition of his hard work. But if he didn't get a scholarship, that wasn't going to change him, and it wasn't going to change his family. He's happy about what he's doing here at the University of Colorado, and you can tell that. And that's the reason why everybody loves him. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see. We got a couple of other. Hard Work says, thank you for the amazing coverage as always. Hard work, I appreciate that. Honestly, it wasn't a lot of hard work today. There wasn't much to show. Kind of moving away from Charlie a little bit and into the spring game recap. It was kind of it's a polar opposite from last year. And so last year we had, but if you went to a spring game before that, which I don't know how many of you were able to go to a spring game before Prime came, but there was basically nobody there. It was really a lot of students for the most part. And I say a lot of students, it was, some students. And, it was generally free to get in, and there weren't a lot of in fact, there were almost no festivities. There were almost no tailgates. But then Prime came in last year was like a full on game. In fact, it was like a hyper game because we had so many people. We sold 50,000 tickets. There were tailgates everywhere. We had the CU Buff alum were there doing a signing day, and they had to do it inside because of the snow. So they did it in the IPF last year. And for those of you who didn't see those lives, you can go back to last year and look at them. But I'm a Buff fan from 1978 was the first time I can really remember watching the Buffaloes. I was 6 years old. And it was, my dad was a big Colorado Buffalo and Oklahoma Sooner fan. And I remember watching that, but it wasn't until about 83 that I really remember like anticipating the season. And Coach McCartney had just come to the University of Colorado. There's a new breath of fresh air, all this stuff. But then you have this really long line of Buffs that basically changed Colorado for forever. And they were all there at the spring game last year. Not all of them, but the big names were all there. And I had anticipated this since I had heard about it. And I went and jumped in line after filming all of the, everything that was going on outside, because it was insane for a spring game. And I got in line, and literally they cut me off at me. The guy in front of me stayed in the line, and me and everybody else behind me had to jet because they had to get everybody out for the spring game. But I went around, snuck some pictures, and I couldn't have been happier. Honestly, I didn't get to meet everybody, but at the same time, I couldn't have been happier for everything that happened last year. And it was just such a surreal environment. Then you fast forward to this year, a little bit different. So I hear that 24,000 tickets were sold. We knew that not that many people would probably show up for the game, primarily due to the weather. And sure enough, I mean, if you looked at my lives, it looked like maybe there was 10,000 people there. And but it was comfortable. I mean, everybody had lots of room, and it was still, they canceled everything else that was that day. They had a kids event out in Franklin Field scheduled, but they cut that off. I think unless they had it in the IPF, I didn't go and look, but it looked like they just canceled it because of the wet weather, which was probably a smart thing to do. And there were a handful of tailgates, all of them very good. In fact, I videotaped one specifically that I thought was really good. So I'm going to put that in my wrap up video that's going to post tomorrow. Really cool van they turned into a beer wagon. It was pretty awesome. Went to the DNVR tailgate, although I got there late, so there wasn't anything going on really. Jake and RK were there, and I talked to them for a little bit, but I didn't film anything as it kind of already started to break up at that point. But then went into the Folsom Field, and got a beer and got some nachos and stuff like that. Headed in, and it was really funny how most of the fans were on the east side and really up close to the field. So a lot of people got a really good view this year because there weren't as many people. So that in itself was really cool. And then team came out, but before they did, another really awesome thing happened, folks. For those of you who don't know who Coach Bill McCartney is, he was the one man that changed the face of Colorado football forever back in the early 80s, won us our national championship. Lots of stories there. Was a hero of mine and still is. And they honored him before the spring game, which was really cool. They had a few of his old buffs there that he had recruited. One of them I know personally really well. And it was a fantastic opening to the spring game. So that in itself was a lot of fun. And then the game started. All the players came out, and it was a kind of a fast ordeal. I'll be honest with you. I had wondered whether or not Travis was even going to be at the game. I wondered if they were going to play Shedeur at all. I thought maybe they would do a series with him, but they actually did 2 series, and then they did some kind of some drills at the end as well. So we got to see a lot of Shedeur, and Shedeur looked really good, folks. Here are my takeaways. On the way back, I was taking notes, and let me pull those up real quick. So, all right, here we go. So you could tell straight out of the gate that he has obviously a great connection with Travis, and Travis caught quite a few balls. In fact, I think there was one series we caught almost every ball. The other series, LeJontay Wester caught almost every ball and had a touchdown. LeJontay Wester looks really good, folks. It is a spring game, and everything's going a little slower. No one really, a lot of guys were not tackleable from that matter because we didn't want to get anybody hurt. But just between those two, LeJontay Wester and Shedeur Sanders, I can tell this is going to be a very special hookup this year. And it's really gonna balance the loss of Weaver, for instance, and Travis looked really good as well. So that was my first takeaway: is that connection there looked really good. The second thing was our offensive line is no joke. These guys have not been together very long, but you can tell. I mean, just from the stands, and I was sitting in the middle. I was sitting at the 50-yard line in the middle of the first deck. And the line that we have is physically different than last year. And I'm just going to say it like that. Physically different than last year. They are huge compared to last year. I mean, I think the average weight is up 20 pounds on every single person on that line, with the exception of a couple of them. And you could tell. It looked like they did a really good job of blocking. Shedeur did get one sack, as it were. He got sacked one time that I saw. And that was like right at the very beginning. It was like the second play or something like that. But still very interesting, to say the least, how that line looks different. Now, another thing that was a takeaway, which isn't anything that is really not going to matter, is that because we didn't have any running backs, unfortunately, Charlie was out and Micah was out as well due to injury. Um, that we had some other people fill in at running back. One of them was Isaiah Harge, which was awesome. When I saw him out there for the first time, I thought, holy mackerel. So, okay, I knew we were going to probably throw some running backs in there, but man, he did a really good job. He did a great job. He was finding holes. The line was doing a good job opening him up. He scored a touchdown. It was like, really, it looked like you could tell he's an athlete. He could probably play, he obviously could play wide receiver, and we know that he can play DB, but now we know he can play running back as well. If he had to fill in, I'm telling you, he could pick up some yards for us. We also had Morgan Pearson running on the twos as the running back as well. And Morgan kind of looked like a fullback out there. Didn't pick up as many yards, wasn't as elusive, but again, he was playing against the number one defense too. Whereas Isaiah was playing against the number two defense. So, but either way, both of them were fun to watch. They were really fun to watch. So that was, I'm going to say that was probably my top takeaways. Let me look at this. Okay. Yes. I got it. All right. Now, the things that kind of stood out as things to look at is our backup quarterbacks did not look very good in this game. Now, granted, I want to put a big asterisk on all of this, guys. This was a spring game. So when you watch the game from the stands, you could tell it was kind of at a slower pace. Somebody said that in there too. It looked like somebody said, let me see, Shedeur is holding the ball too long. It was countdown timer. He said, Shedeur looks slow and tired. So what I think you may be seeing on that countdown was everybody was running at a slower pace. I think the coach said it before the game. Sorry. Coach said it after the game. And then I think coach said it in the presser as well, that no one got hurt. There's been a lot of press in college football this year for spring games. A lot of teams lost some pretty good, talented players in spring games for the summer due to injuries. And I think us playing late and seeing that and it being wet on the field and the fact that we already have a lot of injuries, I think they wanted to go a little slower. So I kind of understood that going into the game. I really didn't think there was going to be a lot of contact, although there were a few really good hits. Overall, you could tell it was an exhibition for the crowd. And we took it like that, and it looked great. So now back onto the backup quarterbacks. Because it was an exhibition, and even though they were generally going against number one defense, the backup quarterbacks struggled a lot. We couldn't get passes. We were throwing passes into the ground. A lot of passes got overthrown. And that was all of our backups. Not all of them, but the key backups that you would think would be out there were playing. And I'm not going to name names because all of them looked exactly the same. Like, I'm not even going to go into it more because I want to be negative about it, because it's not a negative thing. It's just, you can tell now maybe that the quarterback room for number two is up in the air. I'm just going to say that right now. Maybe that's it. Or we're just not going to take anything out of it because it was a spring game and we're just going to move on with our lives, which is exactly what I'm going to do right now because I think I've said too much about it. But I was really kind of looking forward to that. Now, that said, anybody else have any other things that they wanted to say about the spring game before we move on? Shedeur is still holding the ball too long. Yeah, it was the spring game, and I would expect that he would probably try to go for, a touchdown here or there on some long plays. He knew he wasn't going to get sacked, or he knew he wasn't going to get hit. So I think that was probably part of it. Let's see. Heard Nebraska lost 2 starters today due to injury. It's possible. What team was that? Was it Texas or, man, I can't even remember what team it was, but they lost like 3 starters in the spring game. And I don't know that any of them are super serious, but enough to where they're going to be out for the summer until fall, I think. Countdown timer says, I think he's still talking about Shadur here, and he's missing open people. Yeah, again, kind of the same thing. I don't know how serious he was reading things. I think he was trying to get the ball to certain people. Coach said he wasn't. Coach said that he was reading it. But when you're looking out there at the field, you can definitely see there were some open people that were getting hit. Let's see. Webster is like Tank Dell. Countdown timer says, yes, the O-line and D-line look like D1 players. They did. The D-line looked really good too. They were doing a good job. They're popping. Fox Life says, my first time at Folsom was 1981, Nebraska versus Colorado. Huskers lost, and my friend's bro got thrown in jail. Left an impression on me. Yeah, that was back in the good old days. Let's see. TJ said it was just a spring game. It's just practice. Yeah, I don't even know. I'll be honest with you guys. I think the practices were a little bit faster than this game was, but for good reason too. Like I said, the field was wet and slippery, and you know how that goes with injuries. We don't want anybody to get hurt out there for something that doesn't matter. Let's see. Pen Pal says, congratulations to former Buff Xavier Weaver. He is now an undrafted free agent for Arizona. Yes, I saw that. That's really cool. I like the fact that he's like in the, and I'm going to say the Four Corners area, and that kind of sets off some bombs for some people. But Arizona is one of the Four Corner states, and I lived in New Mexico, lived in Colorado. I never lived in Utah, but I spent a lot of time in Utah because I'm an alpinist. I ski. There's where Alpine came from, Alpine Garage. So I kind of think of Utah as a partial home there in the winter. And then obviously I spent a ton of time in Arizona because there's lots of stuff to do there. And being from this area, you got to spend time in Arizona. And that's a really good school, by the way. University of Arizona, Arizona State, all those Arizona schools are good. But looking at the Cardinals, man, that's going to be great. I think that's going to be fun to watch. TJ says, hey, brother, what games are you going to this year, home and away, so we can meet up? I'm going to every home game, and I'm going to the Nebraska game 100%. And then I don't know. I might go to Florida this year. I don't know if I'm going to go to Florida or not, but I would love to for that game. But I'm definitely going to Nebraska. But I'm going to every home game. I'll be at every home game this year. Let's see. Receivers didn't get open against the ones. Ryan looked bad. So yeah, I didn't want to mention people. It wasn't just Ryan. Like if you were a backup quarterback today, this was not your day. It just wasn't set up right. We had some balls that were literally from quarterbacks thrown straight into the turf, like 5 yards past the defensive line into the turf. So I don't know. The ball was slippery. Obviously, it was bad weather. I mean, just scratch that off. It is what it is. We didn't have any running backs really either. We had wide receivers and linebackers as running backs today. So everything was kind of up in the air. And Oregon DB was knocked out. Glad you scaled it back. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Fox Life says, let's see, which McCartney said was the loudest game he'd ever coached in. Yeah, the Nebraska-Colorado games back in the day. When I say back in the day, I'm talking about back in my young days, like back in the 80s and early 90s, were something special. They just really were. There's not anything in college football to me that's more precious than those rivalry games. And then let's see, you should go to Florida and take your wife. Yeah, funny. Here's a funny thing about us. The reason why I'm in Colorado is because I'm a mountain guy. That's where Alpine came from. I'm an alpinist. I'm not a beach guy, guys. I don't like the beach. I don't like sand. If I go to the beach, and which I do occasionally, but if I get like sand in the car, it makes me like, I lose my mind a little bit. See, Leonard Payne. Let's see what we say. Leonard Payne and McClendon signed with NFL teams. You know they were going to do that. Both of those are awesome players. Let's see. Eddie Weeks, awesome. He has been grinding from the Sooner State. Boomer Sooner. Go to Charlie. Yeah, go Sooners. Boomer Sooners to Charlie. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Countdown. Appreciate that. Fox Life is back again. The old 8 got to run the ball. Weather. Yep. In the old Big 8, it was run, 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 run. And we ran the wishbone. Huh? Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, I have somebody that wants to come on and can't get the link. So I'll see what I can do about getting them on here. But yeah, Big Eight. So we used to run the Wishbone. That's actually where Colorado kind of blew up back in the 80s, is when McCartney came. He switched to the Wishbone because every really good team, namely the Oklahoma Sooners, ran the Wishbone. And we wanted to be able to be, at the time, that was, the hot formation to run, offensive scheme to run. And so we switched to the Wishbone, and everything exploded from there. We got Darian Hagan, and went for a national championship and won it. Just running out of various versions of the Wishbone. So yeah, Big Eight. So miss those days, but we're doing pretty well in the Big 12 now, and I'm happy about that. What else you guys got for me? Throw up a couple more comments before we end this live stream. And we've been on for about 30 minutes. And let's see. My last 95 Huskers at Folsom, number 30, play from scrimmage. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. That is awesome. Pen Pal says, has anybody heard the status of former Buff Jordan Dominic? If he got drafted or picked up as outside, I'll be honest with you. I've been so involved in my other work and getting ready for the spring game and then going to the spring game today. Other than being there at the draft night at DNVR for night one when we picked up Bo Nix. By the way, people throw in the chat here, what do you think of Bo Nix for the Broncos? What do you think about that? I say we predicted it. It's not like I'm not that guy. But there was so much chatter about Bo Nix, even though we had picked up, Zach? We picked Zach up from the Jets. And so people thought, okay, we're not going to go for a quarterback. But something told me we were still going to go after Bo Nix if he was available. There he is. We got Bo Nix. So I don't know. I don't know where Dominic went, but he's going to get picked up. We're the weakest conference out of the Power Four. What do you think the record is? I don't know, TJ, if I agree that we're the weakest conference out of the Power Four. We have some really good teams. Now, at the same time, I'm Buff through and through. I also think that we're building. There's no magic potion, especially in the transfer portal era. At this point, and I'm going to go into another video about this. I'm not going to go into this right now, but it is such a. Oh, and by the way, Greg, I'll catch you on the next one, man. I sent you the link. I don't know if you got it or not, but yeah, Bo Nix is an intriguing option. I completely agree. I think I'm going to say he's a quarterback of the future. What was I talking about before that? I don't even remember what I was talking about before that. But in any case, I think that Bo Nix is, we needed a quarterback that everyone could support. And I think that everyone could support Bo Nix. I don't know why I'm thinking that. But this last couple of years has been really terrible as far as I'm concerned. I knew it was not going to look or work well with Russell Wilson, just based on the latter part of his tenure with Seattle. And I thought, well, maybe if he comes to Denver, maybe that will change, but it obviously didn't change. And although it got a little bit better towards the end, as far as the relationship and stuff like that, you just knew it wasn't going to work out. Bo Nix looks like a guy who's going to come in and he can be shaped. He has no predisposition to anything. He's not going to bring his own trainers. Probably, he's probably not going to separate himself from the locker room and do all the things that happened in the past here. He's going to be a team guy, get in there, and he's going to knock it out of the park, I think. So, but fun spring game. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I couldn't be happier for Charlie Offerdahl. What a great, awesome day. Like I said, I was walking out of Folsom and flipping through my phone real quick, and I noticed the pregame show was talking about him getting his scholarship, and I about lost my crap right there. And it's been like a celebration tonight ever since, all the way back to the house and with you guys here. And I'm probably going to do another video about it tomorrow, and I'm probably going to keep talking about it until people puke. But we don't get many stories like this out of college football anymore. Oh, transfer portal. That's what we were talking about. Transfer portal. Every year, it seems like going forward, and it's going to get worse and worse as far as I'm concerned, is you're not having this build your program like we used to have. Like, let's talk about Colorado in the 80s. 83, 84, 85, 86, you can see it building a little bit at a time. Then 87, 88, we started to pop. And then in 89, we exploded. And then in 90, we got it done. And it happens like that with a lot of teams back then. I don't see that happening anymore, folks. I really don't. It's play who you got, flip your team, play who you got, flip your team, play who you got. And whoever is dealt the best hand with the best coach for that year could potentially win the national championship. I don't know why I feel that way. I'm a little bit burned by it right now, but that's what makes Charlie Offerdahl scholarship so important to me, is because this is like the last of the little shred left of the old college football where people used to just walk onto a team, or maybe they were recruited onto a team, but they waited for 2 years to get their spot. They had to fight off a whole bunch of other, blue chip 4 stars, 3 stars to try to get their start. And then all of a sudden they win that battle and they get their start over another 4 star. Maybe they're a 3 star or no star. They get their start over a 4 star and then they become a legend. And you don't see that a lot anymore. And so that's what makes this so exciting. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us today. Please subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and leave a comment in the video somewhere so I can follow back up with you. On every video, I will respond to every comment. I promise you that. It may take me a day, but I try to get to everybody's comment, because what you say in your feedback to me on the channel means everything to me. That's the whole reason why I do it. I'm not doing it for clicks. I don't do it for YouTube money, because there is none for this channel, but I do it for the connection with you guys. And whether you are longtime Colorado Buffs fans, or you're new to Colorado, or you're not Colorado fans at all, but you're just intrigued by what's going on here, I just appreciate you being here and being part of this channel. And we will see you in the next video. And if you haven't already heard, we just finished a spring game and we're ready for a great season. Go Buffs.